And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, it's been a little bit of time since you and I have been back here on the podcast. I think the first time since we previewed and recapped the MLB season, but we now get into one of our favorite times of the sports calendar year: football on the horizon. College football, to be exact, is very, very close to kicking off, about 6 days away from opening week one. And a lot of storylines coming into this 2026 2027 college football season. Of course, last year was a very, very tumultuous and fun ride that you could experience. Indiana winning their first ever national championship. Looking to see maybe if they can get back there this season. But a lot of teams will have a say in them having a chance to repeat as the national champions. We already know the top 25 rankings coming into the season. But Johnson, as we also know, we know a lot of the big news that happened in the offseason when it comes to coaching, as well as transfer moves. And we have a lot of storylines in each of these, big conferences, the Power Four, if you want to per se, talk about, that we're going to talk about here today on the show, while also breaking down who we think will make the college football playoff, as well as see who our Heisman Trophy winner will be, and then eventually getting to our national championship pick, while also giving our very famous Mushing Hour Week 1 picks later on the show.
Now, let's just get it out of the way, Nick. Should NFL draft picks or playing an NFL preseason, should you be
Oh,
allowed to
not
go
this
back to
again.
college? We got to talk about it.
Oh,
It is the
so
most
stupid.
controversial thing that we've probably ever seen. It is because with the introduction of NIL, it was already essentially amateur football was coming to an end, or amateur athletics were coming to an end when we introduced it. But now this is the final nail in the coffin when you can be a fifth year senior, have an injunction in some random state. A lot of players filed in California or Colorado or Tennessee, wherever they filed, and you're playing in preseason football games, and they're not gonna make a draft, they're not gonna make a roster, so they're going back, just going
It,
back to school.
it's so stupid. It's just so stupid. Because like
Hey,
you're
world
watching
we live
guys
in.
last night on practice squads or whatever. They're in, not practice squads now, but
No,
like
they're
they're
in
on a
they're in
roster.
training camps.
They're right. They're on a training camp roster that's playing in a preseason game, but they're also in the transfer portal for college. Like it's really dumb. It's really dumb. It's kind of like we're in a weird like state of
It's a
college
weird state of
sports right
affairs.
now.
So, my take on it is, I hope this only happens 1 year because the NCAA, they're putting some rules in, like the 5 year rule that you have 5 years of eligibility once you turn, I think, 19. So if you don't use them, or once you turn 18, excuse me, so if you don't use them in all those 5 years, so you can't be a 25-year-old man or 26-year-old man, 7 year red shirt, like whatever.
Right.
You can't really do that. So we can put an end to that, which is good. But what I'm kind of scared of, Nick, is the precedent this is going to set. This is going to set because you're now going to have players 2 or 3 years down the line saying, "Well, if these guys in 2026 were able to do it, why can't I do it? That doesn't seem like it's fair to me." Yada yada. So I think really this is going to be a never-ending vicious cycle. I hope it's not, but I just don't see the end in sight.
No, I agree with you. I don't really know where where it ends. There's we're seeing it in college basketball too. It's a weird, like players that have been playing in the NBA, like are now going back to college. Like it's a very weird time for college sports. If you had told me 10 years ago this was happening, I would have been like, how is that possible? Like how, like it's all like legal stuff too, with like going through courts and everything as well. Like it's a whole mess in my opinion. But I mean, I guess give credit to some of these players. They're trying to find loopholes to having an opportunity to extend their collegiate career. Because the only obvious thing about it is if you can't make a training camp, then you're not getting any income. If you go back to college, some team will probably pay you like a lot of money. Now with the NIL, intact. So that's another reason why this is
Oh
happening.
yeah, but you get a lot of money for this. That's to say the least. That's why they're
Yeah.
going back.
Um. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think yeah, I don't know. I would try to like comment more about it, but it's just like a weird situation that's really um like tough to decipher what's right, what's wrong. Obviously the NCAA we know has been not the best corporation, if you want to call it that, organization, whatever it is. There's always something wrong, and you would think that maybe this is the time for them to maybe put their foot down, but they have not done that whatsoever. So I'll leave it like that. I think let's go into our preview of this college football season. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about some of the big Power Four conferences in the college football world. Maybe after every conference, Johnson, we'll make our pick as to who will win the conference, just to make it a little bit easier for us later on in the show. I think we start off with the SEC because I feel like this is a very interesting conference coming into the season. It's always the biggest topic coming into the year. But after what happened in the offseason and where you had big transfer news as well as big coaching news, I feel like this is a perfect way to start this upcoming season. You start off first with the obvious, with what happened during the end of last season that's going to translate into this season, and that's Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss for LSU. Left Ole Miss during that college football playoff run. They didn't win a game in the college football playoff before eventually losing in that thrilling game to Miami in the semifinal. But Lane Kiffin, now the head coach at LSU, of course, a lot of controversy went into that happening, but Lane Kiffin does get a nice payday from from Louisiana State, and now he brings in a whole new roster. He brings in his most of his coaching staff from that Ole Miss team that finally got opportunities to play in the college football playoff like they did last season, and trying to get rid of the stench of what happened for LSU the last couple of years under Brian Kelly. So we'll see if Lane Kiffin can get the job done. Um, we'll talk about some of the transfer portal, news a little bit. They had one of the bigger moves of the transfer portal this past offseason. He was not the only coach, though, that would become a new coach in this SEC portal. Of course, Pete Golden, we saw the defensive coordinator from Ole Miss becoming the head coach of this Ole Miss team now officially after this past offseason. He did win his first college football playoff game against Georgia. I mentioned that game against Miami afterwards, but now he gets his first full year of head coaching at Ole Miss team that does get back Trinidad Chambliss. It goes back to what you and I were just talking about before. They were able to get talk to a
But I will
judge
say
and
Trinidad.
another opportunity.
That's a whole other situation where he really
Right.
didn't
It's not
play
the same thing,
high
but
Division
yes.
One football. It's not the same thing. So
Yeah.
I will say that's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. It was just more about the fact that they were able to talk to a judge. Judge was able to pass it by, and that was a completely different situation because of the whole fact that he was playing D2, never got that red shirt year or whatever it was. So that's the biggest reason why it's a little different to what we were talking about earlier on in the show. Um, Other than that, though, Ole Miss comes in with a lot of expectations with Chambliss coming back, one of the high premier quarterbacks in all of college football after a thrilling 2025-2026 season in which he wasn't even the starting quarterback to start the year for Ole Miss. Took the job from Austin Simmons, and he ran with it and got Ole Miss very close to playing for a national championship. So we'll see if they get back
And
there
that,
this season.
yeah, no, that's one of the biggest what ifs probably of the last 10 years of college because if this was 2015, Lane Kiffin's not doing this. So
Yeah.
it's just to me it really speaks to his character. I've said it a million times before. I'm not gonna go further into this, but I'll let you just continue on with this, Nick.
Some of the other moves we had John Summerall, the head coach of Tulane, now going to Florida. Florida's had a really bad tenure these last, I don't know, plus
Half
decade.
decade.
Yeah, just
They had like a glimmer of hope 5 years ago, and then
yeah,
that's
like
about it.
it's weird because ever since Urban Meyer, they've been looking for the Urban Meyer successor, and they just have not gotten it. I felt like they had it in Dan Mullen, and they got rid of him like for no reason whatsoever, and they haven't found a guy since. Billy Napier's time officially done with the Gators, so Summerall, who had a pretty good ride last year with Tulane. Tulane was playing, and bidding for a college football playoff spot last season, so they get an opportunity now to get a guy that maybe, just maybe, could get this team turned around, but that's easier said than done in this top heavy SEC conference. You have also Alex Golish from South Florida going to Auburn now. Golish, of course, was another guy that had a nice run with South Florida last season. They even beat that Florida team in the swamp. So Golish now have an opportunity to do that with the Auburn Tigers. But Auburn, another school where they just have not looked like the same from that team that we saw a plus decade ago, where they were winning national championships, and they haven't really had a good coach to have a tenure. And obviously, the Hugh Freeze era at Auburn was awful. So it really, hopefully for them, it doesn't get any much worse. Golish will try to see if he can fix this Auburn University program and try to get them back to the top of the SEC. Ryan Silverfield, the Memphis head coach, going to Arkansas. Arkansas, another school that has been through so much bad recent memory, trying to get back to the days maybe of Bobby Petrino when he was the head coach of this team. Um, but it's another school which it's not going to be easy to try to get back to the top of the SEC, but maybe Silverfield can get the job done at Arkansas. It had a nice tenure at Memphis last season. They were another team
They have the
that
NIL
was
backing
competing.
too.
That's true.
They
That's
have the
true.
NIL, so that's one of the most important things is having the actual money to be able to do this,
Right.
and they definitely have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing about most of these SEC schools is that they're going to have the NIL to do stuff like hire big coaches or hire the next big thing and then go out in the portal and get some of these big guys. So that's the beauty of it. There's a lot of like pros and cons to the NIL, but that's one of the pros at least. You could try to maybe, India is a prime example, because they were a team that was, awful, one of the worst records in all of college football,
For
and
the entire lifetime.
they just turned that program around by spending money on the NIL because they had those investors and whatever to support the program, and it worked. And it might work again this season. They went heavy in the NIL portal for the transfer portal. We'll talk about them in our next topic. The final head coaching news for this conference: Will Stein, the Oregon offensive coordinator, going to Kentucky. So no more of the days of trying for Kentucky. Kentucky's trying to get something going. They have just been another program where they've been in kind of like limbo, where you thought maybe, just maybe, they take that next step, and it just has not worked out these last couple of seasons. I think for them, we know what their history is with a basketball program. They haven't been obviously known as a football program. They had Mark Stoops for all those years, and he had some big time upsets during his tenure. But like I mentioned, they never got to that next step of trying to becoming a winning program. So Will Stein, we'll see if he can turn around that Kentucky program and try to make them maybe the next big program in college football in the SEC. Um, Anything to add on there, Johnson, before I go into some of the transfer portal news that we had?
Just go straight to the transfer portal. You got everything.
Some of the big moves in the transfer portal, we talked about it earlier, but Sam Levitt, the Arizona State quarterback, now the new starting quarterback at LSU. So he will try to get Lane Kiffin an opportunity to get maybe some college football playoff aspirations, maybe national championship aspirations. Levitt, of course, was in the college football playoff not too long ago, 2 years ago, with Arizona State. Remember, they almost pulled off that thrilling upset over Texas, and that I guess you could call it the Cam Scatteraboo game, which he pretty much almost carried them to the upset over Texas in that matchup. Cam Coleman, speaking of Texas, the Auburn wide receiver is going to play for the Texas Longhorns. This is a big get for Texas. Coleman, one of the only bright spots of that Auburn offense last season, but I'd argue he's one of the top 5 receivers in all of college football. He's such a dynamic playmaker. He's going to be an NFL wide receiver sooner rather than later. He's a really strong talent for this Texas team to get, and a team that's already got a lot of big time playmakers that has given Texas a lot of aspirations and hopes that maybe this could be finally the year that they get the job done. They also bring in Hollywood Smothers, the North Carolina State running back, another top premier running back that they necessarily didn't even have to get. They already had a strong running game, but now you add him, you might as well think to yourself, hey, listen, we added a top running back and a top wide receiver to our already solid roster that we're bringing most of our players from last season back. That's a big get for Texas. They're really feeling that this could maybe be finally the year. And for Steve Sarkisian, he might need that to be the case because you never know with the way college football is if he's on the hot seat or not. If the season goes awry for the Longhorns, we talked about Alex Golish earlier on, the South Florida head coach. He does bring his quarterback to Auburn, Byron Brown, the South Florida quarterback, going to play for Auburn. Um, he showed some flashes last year for South Florida. It was a really big reason why they were in the Group of Five discussion for the college football playoff. And Auburn really needs the quarterback play. They've had some awful quarterback play these last few seasons. So maybe Byron Brown can get the job done, but a lot of tough, a lot more stiff competition in the SEC compared to playing in the American Conference. So we'll see if he can adapt to that. And then finally, Austin Simmons. I mentioned him earlier on, the Ole Miss quarterback, transferring to go to Missouri. He's going to have a big, chip on his shoulder earlier on in the season because obviously he was supposed to be the guy for Ole Miss last season, got uptaken by Trinidad Chambliss, and now he goes to a Missouri team that had Bo Pubilla last season. He transferred out to Virginia, and Simmons is going to have to be a big time quarterback early on in the season because without Ahmad Hardy, he was going to miss the start of the season because of what happened during the offseason. If you don't know, I would look it up. Not a pretty scary sight for Ahmad Hardy in this previous offseason, but Simmons will try to see if he can keep Missouri alive in the SEC race. They've been a team that I would say has been in the middle of that conference, hasn't gotten to the top, hasn't really had a signature win since joining the SEC. They've had, they made one SEC championship game earlier on in the program, but since then have not really gotten back to that stage. So we'll see. Maybe Simmons can lead that next brigade for the Missouri Tigers. So some of the storylines I have coming out for this conference, Johnson, and I don't know if you want to take it one by one. We could go from there, but looking at this conference, who comes out on top of it? Because you have your obvious, in Georgia. You can talk about Alabama. I don't know about them because
I'm
they're in a
very
weird
glad
state
you
right
said
now.
Alabama because you've spent 10 minutes talking about the SEC
Yeah.
and the name Alabama has not come up. This is put up or shut up time for Kalen DeBoer and
Yes.
Alabama.
Yes.
This has to be the year for them. They need to do something. And I'm of the belief that he finally is going to be able to cross that bridge.
Yeah. I think right now this is to me a conference that I could say 7 teams could win this conference,
Yeah,
and
yeah, the top seven will all definitely have a shot. I would agree with that.
I would say like there you can make the case for all 7 to win, and then outside of that, you can maybe pick one dark horse to maybe do it, but I don't know if that's possible. I think looking at it, Georgia is going to be Georgia. They're going to be competing for it. Texas, you would think, has to be competing for it, but again, we thought that last season, and they just had some bad losses during the season. You're right with Alabama. If DeBoer doesn't get it done, who knows? But remember, he did get a contract extension. So will Alabama want to have to pay all that money like, LSU's doing with Lane
It's not.
Kiffin or
Listen, the school
Brian
is not going to
Kelly?
be paying for Alabama. It's going to be the donors. It's going to be will the donors be willing to buy him out? Because listen, Texas A&M had the same problem.
Right. And LSU,
So,
same thing with Brian Kelly. The exact same thing.
so like it's listen, I get it, but like, is it actually going to happen? Like, I don't really think so.
The other 2 schools we really didn't talk about that I'm talking that we put in the 7, team opportunity, I would say, are Texas A&M and Oklahoma.
They
A&M,
definitely have chances. They definitely have chances.
yeah,
I would say Oklahoma more than A&M. Unfortunately, A&M has a really great quarterback, but
right. Right, and I think for Marcel Reed, that's the biggest thing you have going for A&M. You bring back your starting quarterback. Obviously, the college football playoff did not go their way last season. They had a dreadful game against Miami, in that matchup, and obviously the kicking woes was a big problem for A&M last season. You would think that they got those fixed during the offseason, but only time will tell for that. They did lose a lot of their big time players from that team, so we'll see. The reason why I agree with you with Oklahoma is John Mateer, you would think, is back fully healthy from that injury. He was playing a lot of last season injured, and that really derailed Oklahoma. Even if though they got to the college football playoff, they were just not the same team that they were the first half of that season. But that defense is one of the strongest in the entire SEC. So that's going to give them an opportunity to compete maybe in this conference. But a lot of these teams, obviously it goes without saying, you're going to have a tough schedule. You're playing all these conference games, but you also have some teams that are playing some tough out of conference games. Texas is playing Ohio State at one point. Oklahoma was playing Michigan at one point. It's just like some of the like Ole Miss might be on upset alert in week 1 against Louisville. Who knows? It just goes to show like there's not many. It's not going to be easy for these teams to get to the top of the conference. Outside of that, the only other questions I had, you know, is LSU's gamble for Lane Kiffin going to pay off? Can Bama relive those glory days that we mentioned before? Is Arch Manning going to take that next step that we expect him to take? Because last season he started off really bad, and then the second half of the season he looked like the quarterback that everyone was expecting to see. And then the last question is, can this conference get back to winning national championships?
Oh, absolutely, they can.
They,
I really think with the new changes, they're going to get back to it.
because it's been the Big Ten mostly that's been getting the job done the last couple seasons, and it feels like it's one of the longer times we've seen without the SEC winning a national championship. So, all that being said, who do you have coming out of the SEC as the winner?
With all that being said, Nick, my SEC winner is Alabama.
Oh, okay.
This is the lowest they've been ranked in the last 20 years or 15 plus years. Uh, I guess it's been post Saban now for a couple of years, and
Yeah.
this is the year they finally get it done. It's either Alabama gets it done or Kalen DeBoer shown the door. One of those two things are happening.
Yeah, they just named Keelan Russell their starting quarterback yesterday, so he's
And
officially
I
the
do feel
starter.
bad about Austin Mackville. I do want to say that. This guy leaves high school a year early. He redshirts at Washington. Then he gets to Alabama in 2024. That was the first year Kalen DeBoer came over here. He recruited him specifically to be the quarterback of the future. And, he sat out all of last year too. And, he's not the starting quarterback. So to me, that's a great misjustice. I don't think anyone's actually talking about that, but I do want to kind of point that out.
Yeah, I think for Russell, you look at him too. He did play in that college football playoff game against Indiana because Bama was getting blown out. That was another reason why like people have been wanting Kalen DeBoer maybe out, but you had an inkling that maybe he would be the guy this season, and it was a close competition. They said between him and Mac, but it was Russell that got the job done, and he wins the starting quarterback job. We'll see if he keeps that job throughout the season because again, if Bama starts playing bad, they might want a quarterback change as soon as possible.
Yeah,
So
it is crazy because Austin Mack is a four-star quarterback, and he's taken like 30 snaps in college, and he's been there for three seasons now. That's unheard of.
I don't disagree with that. I think for me, for this conference, I went mostly by schedules and picking who was going to come out. I like Georgia coming out of the SEC this season. I know it's maybe the cop out answer
Cliche.
for this conference, yeah, but I look at some of these conference matches for some of these teams. Georgia does have to play Alabama on the road this season. They also have to go to Ole Miss and they have to play Oklahoma. But you look at Texas. Texas, I think it's going to be a lot of people's picks to win this conference. They have one of the more brutal schedules in all of college football this season. They have to play Tennessee on the road. They got to play Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. You got to play Ole Miss. You got to play at LSU. You got to be on the road against A&M to end the season. Like they have a really tough schedule for where they could go 11-1, 12-0 to maybe finishing 8-4 or 9-3. Like it's not going to be easy for Texas this season. So that's the reason why I don't like them per se. And I only like Georgia maybe slightly over. I would say Texas is probably the second best team, but I'm thinking maybe Oklahoma, in my opinion, might be the third best team in this conference. I'm not sold on LSU yet with Kiffin. I think it's not going to be oh, I'm here now. I'm going to make everything's going to be fixed. Like it's going to take some time for LSU to maybe get the job done. They could make the college football playoff this season for sure, but it's not going to be something where I'm saying yeah they're going to win the national championship immediately in year one with Lane Kiffin. It's going to take a year or two potentially to get to that spot. And I just don't know about Alabama. I'm not really sold on them right now. I think this is the lowest point we've seen this university in decades. Obviously, um, I don't. We have to see what Russell's going to do. It's pretty much an unknown at quarterback. I guess maybe that's the good thing for Bama, but that also could be the downfall of their not being good this season. So I'm not sure. So I think the safest pick is Georgia, just because we at least know what the quarterback situation is. We know, Kirby Smart will get, for the most part, will get the job done. And they always seem to have a strong defense that will at least give them opportunities to win a lot of these games. So I'll take them in the SEC this upcoming season. Um, so a little bit of an early indication of who our two teams will be in the college football playoff. You have Alabama, and I have Georgia. But again, we can have more teams from this conference when we make our college football playoff selections later. We'll go to the Big Ten next. I think the second biggest conference right now in terms of storylines from the offseason. You look at coaching. Kyle Whittingham, the former Utah head coach, was already retiring from Utah this previous offseason, but he's now going to become the Michigan head coach. And after what happened with Michigan in the offseason in terms of coaching, they desperately needed a big time coach. They get arguably one of the better coaches in all of college football in Whittingham, who really revitalized that Utah program after Urban Meyer left Utah. So great hire for Michigan right there. Maybe trying to hope that they can maybe revitalize and get back the hype of Byron Underwood and what happened with him. Not a good freshman campaign for him. The next biggest news, of course, Matt Campbell leaving Iowa State to go to Penn State. Penn State, of course, firing James Franklin after what was a very up and down tenure with the team. They couldn't win a big game necessarily every single time. So Matt Campbell goes to Penn State, probably the best chance they had left after missing out on a lot of big names. Um, had a good tenure at Iowa State. We'll see if he can maybe get Penn State over the hump and maybe get them those key wins that they did not necessarily get the last couple seasons. I know you like this hire because of how unjustly he got fired from Northwestern, but Pat Fitzgerald named the new head coach of Michigan State. Obviously, they have had a bad tenure the last couple of years with head coaches. I feel like this was a great hire for Michigan State if they want to get back on track and maybe be competing in the Big Ten. And then finally, Bob Chesney, who got James Madison to the college football playoff last season from James Madison, going to UCLA, a nice hire for the Bruins. They've obviously haven't had a good start to the Big Ten tenure since moving over from the Pac-12, but I feel like this is probably a good sight. We obviously saw what happened the last time a James Madison head coach came into the Big Ten. Will that happen again? Probably not, but UCLA can maybe hope that maybe that could be the case. Any thoughts about those coaching hires before I move to the transfer portal?
No, yeah, that's all pretty good, Nick. I do want to see how Bob Chesney's going to do. I mean, UCLA, not really a football school, not really a
No,
football town. I mean,
you do get a good,
LA,
you do get a decent quarterback to come
you
into.
do, you do. LA really went from having no professional football and having, I don't want to say rinky dink football, but it's Pac-12 football. Now it's Big Ten
Yeah, you were
football.
you were you were pretty much riding on USC for all those years.
Yeah, and that's not. But LA is like even when UCLA had some hype behind it last year, like it was dormant for a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean they had.
It was crazy, like that you have a lot of money, you have a big name head coach, you have a big name quarterback on paper, and everything that went wrong could have went wrong. So
Yeah,
you,
they
you have
started
a
the year. What was it? 0-3, 0-4.
yeah.
They had not let a game up until that Penn State game, in which they pulled off a miracle upset. Um, yeah, they had a horrible year last year. That maybe Chesley can replace it. You get to keep your starting quarterback. I'm going to say just Nico because I can never pronounce his last name. I know we've been doing it for years. Even when he was
I
on
can't
Tennessee,
pronounce it. Sorry,
I
guy.
try to. I can't. I always get it wrong. Regardless, you get to bring him back. I think that's at least a good sight for you, CLA. Obviously, I'm not saying they're going to be competing in a spot for the college football playoff for the Big Ten championship this season, but it's at least some maybe hope for this university because you're right. This has been always known as a basketball school, obviously for years and years. But this is a UCLA team that I think could definitely be in the bidding to be maybe a team that could be on, I would say, an upset alert for a lot of these, high programs if you have to play them at some points during the season. So we'll see how they do. We'll see how they do. Other than that, for the transfer portal, we had Indiana making some of the bigger moves of the transfer portal this past offseason. Josh Hoover, first from TCU, the starting quarterback for the Horned Frogs, now becomes a starting quarterback for the Indiana Hoosiers. And he's got some big shoes to fill after what Fernando Mendoza did last season, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, number one overall pick. And would not want to be Josh Hoover having to replace one of the, obviously now a big time legend in Mendoza for what he did for that program for Indiana. But we'll see if Hoover can get the job done. He did show some nice flashes for TCU over the last couple of years. We'll see if he can maybe keep Indiana alive in the college football playoff race. They do get Nick Marsh, the Michigan State wide receiver, one of the top wide receivers of the transfer portal outside of maybe Cam Coleman that I mentioned before. But he'll be the pretty much de facto 1A target, it feels like, for Hoover this upcoming season. So Indiana getting two of the top transfer portal players from this previous offseason. This one is a big move, but it won't necessarily mean something this season unless God for you know God forbid an injury happens to this guy. But Dylan Raiola, the Nebraska quarterback, goes to Oregon. He will not be the starter, obviously, with Dante Moore coming back. Obviously, the scenario that I mentioned, it would be the only scenario, and hopefully for Oregon fans that does not happen. But Raiola, of course, had so much hype going into his tenure in Nebraska. It really kind of died down after that one big game against Colorado in his freshman season. And maybe he could get that hype back. I mean, if there's a school to go to get your stats back up, it's Oregon. Dante Moore is going to be a top 5 draft pick in the upcoming NFL draft, albeit if he keeps, playing well. Hopefully for his sake, he doesn't go to the Jets because that's the big reason why he didn't go to the draft this past season. But Raiola will be the backup, at least learning and mentoring under Dante Moore, and while also listening to a very, offensive guru in Dan Lanning, as well as the rest of that Oregon staff. So we'll see if that becomes, can work out for Raiola after this season, maybe into next year. And then the final transfer portal news is Rocco Beck, the Iowa State quarterback, leaving Iowa State to go to play for his head coach, Matt Campbell, at Penn State. Penn State, obviously, Drew Aller went to the NFL draft, also got injured during the season last year. They lost their starting quarterback, or backup, I should say, after that, Ethan Grunkemeyer, who we'll mention in just a little bit, to the transfer portal. So Beck now becomes the starting quarterback at Penn State. And I got to say, Penn State's got a very favorable schedule this season, Johnson. They might be a team that you look up and say, how is this team, 9-3 or 10-2, 11-1?
I'm not buying it. I
I
don't
don't
care.
want to buy it yet, but if you look at the schedule,
I
it's
hear
very
you.
favorable.
You play who's in front of you, yada yada yada. I don't care. Penn
Uh,
State had a lot of controversy because they raised their season ticket prices by like 400%.
well, yeah,
Um, again, I'm not really. Maybe I'm out. Again, I could be completely out of touch when it comes to something like this. I don't really know, but I saw that people are really upset about it, and they were going off about this, and I know it's 400%, but you could still get into the stadium for like under $1,000 for the season. And when you're a power team like Penn State, that's very good. Again, I know you're going to be up in the 400s, you're going to be up in the very top of the stadium, but that's just kind of what it is.
yeah, it's one of the better environments of college football too. Going to Happy Valley and Beaver
I
Stadium.
mean, listen, as a season ticket holder for St. John's, like my tickets have gone up 200%. It's NIL. That's just how it is nowadays. I mean, it sucks what it is, but you want a competitive product.
Exactly. Like if
That's what
you
they
want
gotta
your
do.
team to compete every single season, it's unfortunately going to have to go up. But you're effectively helping your program potentially in the long run. So that's how I look at it, at least. Um, Other than that, I think some of the storylines coming into the conference before we make our pick. Obviously, Indiana, can they repeat as the national champions with a whole new roster, basically from last season's team? Is this conference just going to be a 3-team race? The teams being Ohio State, Indiana, or Oregon, or is there a dark horse? Like, is there a Penn State or a Michigan or a USC? Is there one of those teams maybe can maybe they make a bid for the conference this season? Can Dante Moore Can he finally get Oregon that elusive national, that the national championship that has eluded them for so many decades now? Um, Obviously, after what happened last season against Indiana, he had a horrible game against the Hoosiers, and maybe it was a big reason why he went back to college because he was effectively going to be the number 2 pick in the NFL draft had he forgone his last season of college and gone to the NFL draft. So we'll see if he gets the job done this season. Maybe Oregon can finally get the job done. Can Penn State and Michigan get back on track after their disastrous 2025? I know putting Michigan in there, maybe not as bad as Penn State in terms of disaster, but considering what happened with the coaching news with Michigan, with Sharon Moore, again, look it up if you haven't seen it. It's a bad story.
Michigan, they also did some very dirty things. They knew
Yeah,
about this situation, and
exactly.
they kind of swept it under the rug until these players weren't able to transfer out. So
Right.
I was not a fan of that.
That's why I think Whittingham. I think if there's ever a coach to fix all the scrutiny for this university, I think that's the perfect guy you hire in a spot like that. And as like I said, Bryce Underwood has to get better because he was supposed to be a highly touted guy coming out of high school. He was going to go to LSU initially, and then Michigan decided to pay him a buttload of money to get him to flip his commitment to go to Michigan. He does, and I'm not necessarily saying he had a bad, freshman campaign, but it's not like what we were expecting him. He was supposed to be the next big thing, a future number 1 overall draft pick potentially in the NFL draft. Michigan needs him to be something like that remotely just to have a chance in this conference this season. And then finally has time right now for Lincoln Riley at USC. Had a great tenure at Oklahoma. He got, an opportunity to go to USC and maybe try to get the Trojans back to the days of Pete Carroll and, Matt Leinart and all those guys, Reggie Bush. But they just have not, they feel like Penn State in a way, Johnson, where they cannot win the big game. They have not been able to win that game that can solidify them as a college football playoff team. If any example is prime, look at what happened last season when they lost to Notre Dame. That was the game in which they win that game, they're in the college football playoff. But they couldn't get the job done. It just seemed like everything that was going right for them the weeks prior, everything went awry for them in that game against the Fighting Irish, and is a big reason why they missed out. And if they don't make it this year, I don't know. It could be time running out for Lincoln Riley as the USC head coach because how much more longer can they wait for all this to finally work out for them and to get back to maybe competing for national championships because they haven't done it in almost 2+ decades. So who knows? All that being said, who do you have coming out of the Big Ten?
Oh, Big Ten, the premier
Tough
conference in
conference
college
pick.
football nowadays. Oregon, I think it's finally their
Oregon.
time. I'm not buying Ohio State, and I think Indiana takes a step back. Indiana lost so much talent. Like they really lost
Yeah.
a
No.
boatload of talent, so I can't pick them.
Yeah. No. I agree. I'm gonna go. Man, I'm gonna go Oregon too. I'm gonna agree with you on this one. And again, it might come because I'm going based off of the conference schedule that they have. The toughest test is I think Ohio State. They I think had to play Michigan too, and they'll obviously play USC. But Ohio State and Indiana will be playing each other at one point during the season, so that is going to be a loss for one of those two teams. If Ohio State were to lose that game, then lose to Oregon, that's already 2 losses right there for the Buckeyes in conference play. But I'll pick the Ducks. I think, we talked about it earlier, but I think this is a Dante Moore, I don't want to say revenge season because he had a
I
good
would
year
say
last
revival.
year. I don't even know if it's that because he had a really good year last year. He just had one bad. He had 2 bad games last year, and unfortunately, both of them were against Indiana.
Those games are the ones that drag you down, though. That's the
Right,
games you need.
right, and
So
they were
that you
against
need he
Indiana.
needs a
Right.
revival after that. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's fair. I think we know he's a quick quarterback. I think it's stepping up in those big game spots. I think that's where you want to see him revitalize his career, revive whatever you want to say. Um, they did lose Kenyon Sadiq. I think that's a big loss for them, obviously, going to the NFL draft, but they still have a really strong roster outside of losing some of their guys from last season's team. I think based off of all three of those teams, because I do think this is a three-team race for the Big Ten. I think they lost the least out of the three. I think Ohio State lost a lot. They still have Jeremiah Smith, which is obviously a great, number one wide receiver to have. Indiana, we will be going through the portal. We don't know necessarily how it's all going to work out in year one with this new portal team, but it might work out for them. I think Oregon might be just the safest out of the three to say, okay, I know what I at least might be getting out of this school. So I'll take the Ducks as well, coming out of the Big Ten to win the conference this season. Next conference, Johnson, let's go to the ACC because this was a conference that last year had, I don't know, what do you want to say?
I don't.
Wacky? Is
I
that
don't.
is
I
that
don't care, Nick. I don't care about the ACC.
I know. But to think that
You
Duke
have a
won
couple.
the,
Yeah, you have a couple cool things going on here, but
yeah, like Duke won the conference last year, 8-5. They beat Virginia. They didn't even have a team make the college football playoff in terms of conference champion. The only team that made it was Miami. Um, so I don't know. We'll go into the storylines real quick before we move on to the final conference. James Franklin, the former Penn State head coach, now the new head coach of Virginia Tech. I do like this move for Virginia Tech. They haven't been really good in the last couple,
and this is the kind
plus
of hire they
decade,
needed because
but
this is
this
a
is
very
definitely
low pressure situation for
right.
James Franklin.
This is a low risk, high reward. I feel like
Yes, absolutely.
for Virginia Tech, because there's not a lot of pressure on James Franklin to get obviously the job done in year
He doesn't
one.
need
He
that.
has
He does
a lot
not
of
need to win
time.
10 games off the bat.
Right.
If he wins 8 games this year, Virginia Tech fans would be pretty happy.
Yes.
If they win 8 games, and it's like, oh yeah, you can go to the Pinstripe Bowl, they'd be pretty happy.
Oh, no question. No question about it. So we'll see what James Franklin does at Virginia Tech. We'll talk about them as well, making the transfer portal move in just a few moments. Tosh Lapoy, the Oregon defensive coordinator, going to Cal. Not a bad move for Cal. Of course, they have one of the top young quarterbacks in college football. Again, I can't say his name. It's one of those, tough names to pronounce, but let's just trust me. If you watch a Cal game this season, you're going to see a really strong quarterback that they have that could be an NFL quarterback in the next couple of years. There's a lot of hype to him, and I know I'm not really selling him high with not saying his name, but trust me on this one. I'm not the only one that thinks this. A lot of people think that this kid could be the next thing. I'm just gonna call him JKS. That's the short way of getting to his name, but trust me, he might be the next big quarterback at Cal. Remember, we saw what Mendoza did. He was a Cal quarterback initially, went to do some bigger things. I don't, for Cal fans, hopefully that doesn't happen to you again, but we'll see. Tasha Poy, the defensive coordinator from Oregon, going there. And then finally, Tavita Pritchard, who was the Washington Commanders quarterback coach last season, now the Stanford head coach. Obviously, Stanford has been so bad since the days of Andrew Luck. They need something to revitalize that program because it's pretty
Again,
much
I have a theory with all this stuff going. I'll wait to the end of it. Not
okay.
even for this, but just keep on going because I have a really radical solution at the end of all this.
Okay. Transfer portal news. I'll do the two Miami moves that we have here. Darian Mensah, the Duke quarterback who got Duke, was able to help Duke win the ACC championship last season. Now goes to the Miami Hurricanes, who of course lost Carson Beck to the NFL draft this past offseason. So arguably the best quarterback in the portal going to Miami. We'll see if he can get Miami the ACC championship after they were supposed to win it last season and it didn't work out. They also got Damon Wilson the second from Missouri, the defensive end, to come to Miami. They obviously lost Ruben Bain in the NFL draft, one of their top pass rushers. So he's got big shoes to fill there in that position, but was a strong defensive end from Missouri last year. We talked about Ethan Grunkemeyer earlier, the Penn State quarterback. He now goes to play for his former Penn State head coach, James Franklin, at Virginia Tech. So he becomes a starter now for the Hokies this season. And Justice Haynes, the Michigan running back, going to play for Georgia Tech this season. One of the top running backs in the portal, going to play for the Yellow Jackets, who now no longer have Haynes King, the starting quarterback last season. But we'll see if Georgia Tech can maybe be that team that still pulls off a couple upsets here and there in the ACC. I think this is a conference, Johnson, as well, that has a lot of big storylines, I feel like, coming into the season. Obviously, is it going to be as wild as it was last year? Um, with the 8-5 Duke winning it, like, is it going to be like that again? Or will we have someone like a Miami,
Miami
finally
gets
get
it
that
done.
championship?
Miami gets it done this year.
I agree with you. I agree
Miami
with
has
you.
to get it done.
Other than that, it's, is Norvell going to get fired at Florida State? I think that's no question about that. Dabo have we seen the last of Clemson in terms of them being a top program in college football? And what is the future hope for Bill Belichick and UNC? Because
All right, so
who knows?
I got some takes on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
UNC wins 6 games and make a bowl, and
Mhm.
it keeps Bill Belichick's job. That's my hot take because I know they think their over unders 4.5. I think they hit 6, and I can kind of point to the teams on the schedule for Bill if you want me to.
I'm looking right now at their schedule.
Okay. I think they obviously lose. They're going to lose to TCU. I think TCU is going to blow them out.
She should be East Tennessee. I don't think they go to Clemson and win that game.
I
And
think they
not being
beat. I think they beat East Tennessee.
yeah.
I think they can beat Duke. I think they can beat Q's. I'm sorry,
They
Nick.
should beat Duke. They should beat Q's. There's no sorry. The Syracuse
They
sucks.
could beat UConn.
They
So
can
that's
beat Pitt.
5.
They can beat Pitt.
Yeah, but I'm saying, and they think they can beat Virginia. That's 6.
Virginia, I don't know. Virginia's not terrible.
Not good either. That's
I
what
would
I'm
say
saying. I'm
NC.
not saying, oh my god, it's a lock they're going to beat them.
I'd say
I'm saying,
NC
hey, it's
State,
possible.
UConn, Syracuse, Duke, Pitt, East Tennessee. That would be your 6 wins.
Yeah, so I'm saying it's definitely possible. I think that it's more than possible. I think Bill can get it done.
They could probably beat Virginia. I just think Virginia isn't as bad. Like this,
Yeah, so
they made
yeah,
the championship game last year. They have Bo Pupila now as a quarterback. Like they still have a chance. At least to be not make it a championship game, but to at least be competitive in the
yeah.
conference.
So I think they can. I think Bill can get them to can get them to 6 wins. All right. So these other storylines you have over here with James Franklin kind of went over that. Mike Norvell, we're gonna find out in about 10 days
He's gonna get fired.
if he's done.
I don't think
I really think he's gonna get fired.
it doesn't matter. He should have been fired last season. It just
Can Miami get over the heartbreak and go back to Vanatti? No, but
they should win the conference.
and I think the ACC will be even more wild than last year.
You really think it's gonna be that more wild?
I firmly believe that we are looking at the beginning of the end for the ACC.
Well, here's why I say that, because last year you had the Duke 8-5 team win, and they weren't ranked to end the year, and they didn't make the college football playoff, and Virginia could have made it, but they didn't win. So we both agree Miami's going to win it. Are you saying outside of Miami, the rest of the conference is going to be insanely, like, everyone beating up on each other?
And if you take a look at the legislation that lawmakers in Florida and the Senate are trying to do, they're trying to make it where Miami can get a way out of the ACC if that ain't penalties.
Yeah, we've heard maybe they might move to the SEC. That's a possibility.
You could very well see Clemson doing the same thing. Maybe the Clemson doesn't go to the SEC. Maybe they go to the Big 12. Like you're gonna see a lot of these teams leave because they don't want to be in a conference with Boston College.
I'm gonna love.
They don't want to be in a conference with Syracuse. No offense, Nick.
No, the Syracuse shouldn't even be in that conference. They should just stay in the Big East or an independent. I don't even know. It was so stupid they got rid of that conference. But Stanford shouldn't even be in this conference. Cal shouldn't even be in this conference. It makes no sense for those schools to be in there either. Anyway, regardless, I think yeah, if I'm Clemson also, I'm not moving to the SEC right now. The way that they're currently scheduled, they are not in a good spot right now. Like they look really big. They look like pre-Dabo Clemson, which they were really bad for a while. Like they are not in a good spot whatsoever. But maybe they can prove me wrong. Maybe they have a bounce back year this year. I don't think so. So other than that, we both agree Miami. I think we both had them coming out of the ACC. We did that last year. Obviously, that didn't work out, but I think it would be just insanely stupid if they didn't get the job done this season. So I'll leave it at that. Final of the Power Four conferences is the Big 12. Not many coaching news in this conference. The biggest one was the only one. Eric Morris, the North Texas head coach, going to Oklahoma State. With that, he does bring his starting quarterback and starting running back out of the transfer portal. Drew Mestamaker, another guy that's arguably the best quarterback in the transfer portal goes to the Cowboys. Caleb Hawkins is starting running back, also going there. Mike Gundy obviously got fired last season. What will they do? It's the first time in a long time we've seen Oklahoma State without Mike Gundy as the starting quarterback, as the head coach of this program. So definitely interesting time to see what they're going to do. But there's still a lot of hype for them coming into the season with Mestamaker and Hawkins coming through the portal. You have Reed Harris, the Boston College wide receiver, going to Arizona State. They also get Omarion Miller from Colorado to transfer there. So two big wide receiver gets for the Sun Devils. And then finally, DJ Lagway, the starting quarterback for Florida last season, transferring over to Baylor. Obviously, the quarterback play for Baylor has not been great since maybe RG3. Maybe you could get Bryce Petty if you want to say that. Regardless, Lagway's tenure at Florida wasn't the best. Maybe a change of scenery in the Big 12 can help revitalize what was supposed to be a solid, college campaign for Lagway, and as he goes to the Big 12. Some of the storylines, is Texas Tech going to repeat? We saw what happened in the offseason with them. Brandon Sorsby, obviously that did not work out and try to get him to play this season. So Will Hammond does get his opportunity to become the starting quarterback for the Red Raiders as they try to repeat as the Big 12 champions. Will Oklahoma State get back on track in their first year without Mike Gundy and now Eric Morris at the helm? Is there a dark horse in this conference? You can make the case that maybe every team in this conference believes that they could win this conference this season.
I'm glad you said that, Nick,
Um,
because the bottom of his conference is absolutely horrific.
it is. It is. I don't. I'm not saying it. I'm telling you that
Like
every
you
team
talk
believes
about a
they
team
can.
like West Virginia is probably straight middle of the pack, maybe
I don't even know.
lower middle of the pack.
I don't even know if
Like
they're
no,
middle of
I
the
listen.
pack.
I think they're better than Kansas, UCF, Cincy, Colorado, Iowa State. They're better than 7 teams in this
I would
conference.
say they're better than. Oh man, that's.
They're better than 6 to 7 teams in this
I
conference,
don't even know if
which
they
is
are.
why it makes me believe it's upper middle or lower middle.
I think I might take UCF over them, but that's saying something.
UCF is bad, Nick.
West
UCF
Virginia's
is bad.
not good, man. I don't know.
But anyway,
Regardless,
there's a to me the dark horse of this is whoever can lose the least amount of conference games. That's the dark horse.
yeah. I think if there's a dark horse to me, I've heard a lot of rumbling about Houston. Like maybe that's the dark horse because they have a good quarterback play. Like maybe that could be the reason why.
Like
Obviously,
I don't believe in Houston though. That's the issue I'm having
no,
here.
but you do believe in their quarterback.
I do.
You do. He's a former Aggie, so you would believe in him.
I do. I do. That is a good point.
Are they ranked to start the season, Houston?
Houston, I don't believe so.
Why am I seeing their? That's weird. Anyway, um, I'm trying to think of anything else. Otherwise, storylines. Yeah, I guess is how's Utah going to look without Whittingham their first year without him after 2+ decades with them, and then is BYU maybe that threat to Texas Tech to win the conference this season? Um, you might have more insight into that. Who do you have winning the Big 12?
BYU. I think they're gonna be the competition Texas Tech needs. Are they gonna are they gonna like stay on top? I don't really know, but I think BYU has a very decent chance of winning it. So I'm gonna pick them, even though they're not the safe pick. I'm gonna pick BYU.
Yeah, I mean Bachmeyer, their starting quarterback last season, does come back. Well, Houston is ranked, so maybe they're not really a dark horse. I guess I can't really say that now. I thought they weren't ranked. Anyway, Bachmeyer comes back for BYU. That's a nice get for them. They had a pretty good year last year, but they got some tough games this season. They had to play Notre Dame at one point this year. Obviously, I think they do play Texas Tech. Actually, I don't think they do now. Now I'm thinking about it, I don't think they play Texas Tech. They don't. They had to play another big game in that conference, and I don't remember who it was at the top of my head. There was a reason why I didn't like them. I picked Texas Tech because if you look at their schedule, Johnson, Texas Tech is one of the worst conference schedules, maybe of
I
all
hear you.
the teams. They had to play Utah on the road. That's why I was scared about BYU. Um, I think Utah's still going to be still fine, but Texas Tech's conference schedule was really bad. Like if I'd be kind of stunned if maybe they don't get back there. The only tough schedule I feel like on their schedule right now is they play Houston at home, and then what? That their road games are tough. Maybe Oklahoma State on the road, but we don't know what they're going to be because it's a whole new roster basically. So I'm just going to pick Texas Tech by default to come out of the conference. Um, it's not going to be as good as the team we saw last season, but I still think it's going to be just good enough to still make the college football playoff as the de facto Big 12 champion. So I'll take the Red Raiders as my Big 12 champion this
And
season.
there you have it.
So um, that at least does it for our Power Four conferences. I don't know if you wanted to talk about who you have coming out of the Pac-12. I know that was the conference you wanted to talk
It's
about a little bit.
Boise State, Nick. It's the revival of the Pac-12. They're going to be on the CW, Nick. The
Sure.
CW on paper is like, oh, why are they going to CW? Well, because the CW is local regional cable for a lot of people, and what they need is exposure. When you have a new league like this, you need exposure. It's the exact same the Big East did in the '80s that made them such a dominant and cultural force because they didn't have money or they didn't have anything else, but they needed exposure. And they partnered up with ESPN, an upstart trailer in pretty much in Connecticut, 90 miles outside New York City, and that grew the ESPN media machine to what we know today. So I think this is a good move for the Pac-12. And with that being said, I'm going to go with Boise State, which is one of their new members.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
gonna
think
pick.
within a couple of years, Nick, you're going to have a lot of these teams come crawling back, especially when the ACC gets blown up. You're going to see teams come back to the Pac-12. You're going to see
Now,
Stanford. You're going to see Cal.
yes, this will be my question for you regarding this conference. It's going to tie into our next thing with the playoff. Is this the conference that gets the Group of Five winner, or is there another conference you think
This is the
gets that Group
conference
of
that
Five?
gets it.
So you think that? So you think Boise will be the team that gets in the college football playoff as the Group of
Yes,
Five?
yes, that is my belief.
Um, I think I'm. I think I'm gonna agree with you on it, only because I'm thinking about it. Like the other options you could pick to maybe be the Group of Five, I would say maybe JMU again. I think Napier
Yeah,
is
maybe, maybe.
Billy Napier now the coach at JMU replacing Chesney, but you gotta think that they'll be in the running for it at some point. Um, Maybe a Memphis. You know who I would like to see maybe make it? That probably won't do it in year one, but I would love to see it down the line. We do have a new power Division One team, North Dakota State.
That is true.
I would love to see them in the college football playoff
I don't
in
think
a
they'll
year or
get it
two.
done this year, but maybe
Not
in a year
this
or
year.
two.
They're in a good favorable conference, but I think there's a good shot they can make it in in the upcoming years. But I think I'll agree with you. I think I'll go with Boise State as my Group of Five. So let's just kind of tie it in and go to our next segment. Who do we have making the college football playoff as itself?
All right,
We've
you
given
sitting
our
down,
Power
Nick?
Four. We've given our Group of Five. Who are the other teams you have making it?
Give me Miami, and I'm going to repeat my picks first. So my picks were Miami, BYU, Oregon, Boise State, Alabama to win my conferences and therefore make the playoffs.
Okay.
After those five teams, give me Georgia, give me Texas, give me Ohio State, give me Oklahoma. So that's four SEC teams. Give me Texas Tech. There's another Big 12 team. Surprise. Give me Indiana to make it back to the playoffs. And then
Okay.
finally, of course, Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Notre Dame's schedule's not really great. So um I pretty much have almost the same. Here's mine. I'm still kind of writing my out, but I'm gonna list it out in order. So it's obviously my those conference championships that we mentioned. I had Georgia, Oregon, Miami, Texas Tech, and Boise State. I'm not going to make the mistake I did last year. I have Ohio State. That was a stupid job I made to not have them. I didn't even realize until after I did not have them in my college football playoff. I have Ohio State. I have Notre Dame. I have Indiana. I have Texas. I have Penn State in there. The schedule is really favorable for them. I think they could sneak in as 10-2 record. I will have as my final two teams. Give me. Hmm. Do I
It's
think?
tougher than it looks, Nick.
Yeah, because I don't know if a second. I don't believe. I don't trust Alabama this year.
All right, you're not gonna trust Alabama after all that
I think they
empowering
finished.
speech I gave you.
I think they finished 9-3 or 8-4. I don't.
Ah,
I don't
man,
know.
it's gonna be terrible.
I could this so this could backfire, and I think I might be completely wrong about it. I think that's going to happen. Um, my final two, give me BYU. I'll put a second Big 12 team in there. Might as well. And then my final team, uh, what have I not put in there that I don't want to forget? I didn't put in there this time around. You know what? Screw it. I like the storyline. Give me LSU in there. Why not?
LSU, I would never do that over my cold dead body.
I don't. I don't. I didn't want to do it. I don't think they make it, but I'm all for the storylines this year. I want put Lane Kiffin in the college football playoff in year one at LSU. So give me LSU as my last team. So I got Georgia, Oregon, Miami, Texas Tech, Ohio State, Boise State, Notre Dame, Indiana, Texas, Penn State, BYU, LSU. Penn State's probably my longest shot. It feels like outside of Boise State, maybe. But so we'll say. How about Heisman Trophy winner? Who do you got for that?
Heisman, I don't really know, Nick. I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you start this one.
Yeah,
I've been starting the last couple. I'm gonna let you start this one.
I picked Arch Manning last year. Do I dare do it again, Johnson? Do I dare go back to the Arch Manning?
It's
Uh,
old reliable, Nick.
you know who I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick Darian Mintz out of Miami.
So you have that much that
I
much
love.
faith in Miami, huh?
Here's why I picked him. He has a really good number one target in Malachi Tony. I love that combination of the two. Um, really feel like Mensa could be that guy that gets Miami maybe over the hump. He's a strong quarterback. He was a high talent quarterback out of, I believe it was Tulane he started off with. Then he went to Duke. Now he's there in Miami. I really think that he could be the guy that gets Miami. I'm not saying as a national champion, but I think that he could be the guy that gets Miami to a really strong season this year. If I had a dark horse, give me Lenore Sellers. Why not?
That was gonna be my dark horse. Okay, no, not my dark horse. I was about to ask you what your dark horse is gonna be.
Yeah.
So
Give me a dark horse,
I'm
Lenore
not gonna
Sellers.
pick sellers. I'm not gonna pick sellers because I'm not really.
Who do you have as your winner first?
Well, I'm gonna go into that. So,
Oh, my bad, my
but
bad.
I'm not gonna pick. I'm gonna pick my dark horse because I don't have him making the playoffs, and I feel like to be a Heisman winner, you have to be in the playoff contention. So,
Okay,
that
yeah.
being said,
That's great.
my Heisman winner is Dante Moore.
Okay, yeah.
However, with that being said, if this team were to make the playoffs, I think it's Trinidad Chambliss.
Hmm.
I
I like
really
that.
think,
I do like
yeah.
that.
Listen, I think he's got real potential, and the way the season ended, I think he has a lot to prove. So I would pick I'd pick Chambliss.
Yeah, like right. If you look at the Heisman odds right now, like CJ Carr and Arch Manning are pretty much back and forth the top two um favorites. But then it's like Dante Moore, Julian Sain, Mensa, Chambliss. A lot of people like Jeremiah Smith, which obviously is not a bad pick, of course. Josh Hoover's up there, but you can get a lot of good value out of picking one of these guys to be the Heisman Trophy winner. Um, it's more than likely going to be another quarterback. It's not,
Oh, more than likely, yeah.
very rare do you see a wide receiver win it or a running back. I think if there was a receiver to win it, it's probably Jeremiah Smith. I like Malachi Tony's chances, but excuse me. But yeah, I like Dante Moore being the Heisman Trophy winner as well. Not a bad idea whatsoever. But let's go into our final two topics for the week, Johnson. Let's first go into the week one mushing out before we make our pick to win the national championship. We have 6 games on the docket for week one. Some interesting games for week one, to say the least. And the first one starts off in Dublin, Ireland. UNC TCU playing in Dublin. TCU is a 7.5 point favorite, over under 47.5. You were just talking about Bill Belichick earlier. Can they get the win in Dublin to start the season?
No, they're gonna get smoked. Unfortunately, they're gonna. This is gonna be their wake up game. I don't. I think they're gonna get absolutely blown out here. Give me TCU minus 7.5.
I initially put the over, but then I realized sometimes that those fields in Dublin can be kind of tricky. So I'm going to just stick with you on TCU minus 7.5 on that one too.
That's fair.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much of a take. I know you said 6 wins for UNC. I don't know if I see them doing that this year, but I mean,
6 wins.
I'm not saying there isn't a chance, but I have a feeling that they might be going 4-8, and then Belichick just says, you know what, I can't do this anymore.
Oh, it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Definitely possible.
What's our next game?
We have Boise State at number 2 Oregon, Blue Turf, and Oregon's a 24.5 point favorite. 52
Whew.
and a half is the slate over under. Boise State plus 24 and a half. That's too many points. That's too many points for them to cover week 1. I don't believe it.
I'll take the over for this game. I was gonna take the last game. I'll take it for this one for sure.
Okay.
Old Pac-12 team, new Pac-12 team. It's gotta be some points, right?
Yeah,
I,
yeah, that's fair. I like that.
there's gotta be some game in week one that like is like
It's explode.
30,
Get like
38,
a 70-point
35.
game.
Yeah, something like that. But 24 and a half is a lot of points for Boise State. For a team that we both expect to maybe make the college football playoff this year as that group of 5 winner. I agree with you on that. Our next game, we have Clemson going on the road against number 11 LSU. It's weird to see Clemson not ranked to start the season, but that's how bad their year was last year.
Yeah.
LSU 9.5 point favorite, over under 51.5. The first game of the Lane Kiffin era at LSU. What do you have for this game?
Clemson plus 9.5. I don't think they get the upset here, but I think they're gonna surprise and keep Lane sweating a little bit. I think the first half Lane's gonna wish he stayed at Ole Miss.
Mm. This was an ugly game if you remember last year at Clemson. It was a
Very.
low scoring game. The offenses were really bad
People
this
thought
game.
Brian Kelly was back.
Yeah, it was an ugly game. It was so much. And remember, LSU won the game. And everyone thinking, "Oh my God, LSU was going to win the national championship this season," and then it just completely went downhill after that. I'm going to take LSU to cover the 9.5. I just have no faith in Clemson right now. I don't know what their team identity is. I think we've seen the last of Dabo Sweeney in the good old days of Clemson. Thank God for that, because I had to deal with that so many years. But I think LSU, if they want to make a statement that this could be changing the tides, Lake Kiffin being there, I think they need a blowout win in this one. So I think they maybe get the job done. Give me the 9.5 in that matchup
Nine
against
and a half is a
Clemson.
lot of points. Yeah.
Matchup of Tigers. What do we got in our next game?
We have Wisconsin going to Notre Dame. Not really, but it's a neutral site game in Green Bay. So I would say this is more
This is a
favoring
home game for them.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's a home
Yeah,
game
it's a
for
little,
them.
little strange. But yeah, it's Notre Dame minus 20 and a half, over under 47 and a half. Notre Dame minus 20 and a half. I know I just said that's a lot of points, but this is supposed to be Notre Dame's year, so make it happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of points. Wisconsin, has been so bad the last couple seasons. They do have a new quarterback coming in that I think they're hyping up to be, but they I forgot the head coach's name. He's got to go soon too. They needed a whole new change of scenery. I'll just take Notre Dame minus 20.5 as well. I don't really like it, but I just don't have faith in Wisconsin to maybe keep this game close. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Our next game goes into the ACC, an early conference matchup to start the season, Johnson. We have number 19 SMU at I almost a number, but at Florida State. SMU is a 2.5 point favorite on the road, over under 53.5.
Oh man, that's tough, Nick. Give me Florida State. They're really good at home. They're gonna cover. I don't know if they're gonna win, so give me FSU plus 2.5. That's a very tough game
I
because
want to
there's a
believe this.
lot of pressure both ways here.
I
There's a
know.
lot of NIL money going into SMU, and they're trying to be this emerging program going forward. And FSU is also, trying to hold on to their identity of the past. So there's a lot of things going both ways here.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier they lose this game that you could make the case that they should just fire Norvell immediately after the game's over. Obviously that won't be happening, but I mean, it would be pretty, you know, it would make a lot of sense if they did. I'm going to take SMU to cover the 2.5. There's a lot of people that think if it's not Miami that wins this conference, that SMU probably, maybe Louisville, who knows, but maybe SMU is the second best chance to win this conference. Um, I just don't trust Florida State. I don't know what their team identity is. I don't really have no faith in them either. I feel like I'm in the same boat with them as Clemson, like I mentioned earlier on. So I'll take SMU to cover the 2.5 in that matchup on the road. Hope for them trying to get a big road win to start the season. And then Johnson, we have another neutral site game. This game taking place in Atlanta. Why don't you break it down for us?
Yeah, we have two teams. I would say number 24 Louisville, which is spiritually SEC. You know, it's in the state of Kentucky. Kentucky is has an SEC school, whatever. Versus number 9 Ole Miss, and taking place in Atlanta. So both these fan bases are going to travel well, not too far. And Ole Miss minus 6.5, over under 55.5. Give me Ole Miss to cover this by a touchdown. So give me Ole Miss minus 6.5 here, and Louisville should stick to being a basketball school.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype for Louisville. A lot, like SMU, that people think that maybe they could be a team that is a dark horse, if you want to say that, or maybe the team that maybe can pull it off. Remember, Louisville did, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they go to Miami last year and beat Miami on the road?
They did.
Yeah, so like there's a chance that maybe they could be a team that's a dark horse, or it could be maybe a team that finishes in second. Maybe it's the second team for the ACC to make the college football playoff. I don't think so, but I think the problem is I feel like every time we watch an ACC versus an SEC school, the SEC school always seems to just either win or they win it in a convincing fashion. So I'm going to agree with you on Ole Miss minus 6.5 in this game. It's really tough to trust the ACC schools when they play these SEC schools because most of the time they just get you know upended and it just feels like it's not a game by halftime. So I'll go with Ole Miss minus 6.5. I'll agree with you on that one. So pretty much a lot of our picks were similar, which sometimes is not the best for for us at the end of the time. I need a big bounce back year after last year's college football season. I had a really bad.
I did
Uh,
okay. You know, it was not great, but
it's yeah. I'm looking real quick to see what our record was. You over 500 at least. You were
yeah,
10 games plus.
yeah. Listen, it was a decent year.
I was almost
Way
20
better
games
than.
under.
Yeah, listen.
I can't do that
Here's the
much.
thing. Here's the thing. Like, in the grand scheme of things, what was my final score?
Your final record was 65 and 53.
See, here's the thing. So it's 65 and 53, right?
Yeah,
So that is 118 total games, right?
yeah.
So at 65 divided by 118, that's 55%. So that's barely winning, right? That's because you need 50, I think 53.5% to be profitable. So yeah, I had a
Yeah, you had a profitable
profitable
year.
gamble year, theoretically. I should.
Now,
Now you, on
now,
the other hand, got absolutely destroyed.
yeah, it was like you in the NFL. It was horrible. It was absolutely terrible. And the problem was, I took a lot of them were me trying to do double picks because I was trying to get my record back to positive, and it just never worked. Will I
And
be
again,
doing that again this
and
season?
again
Hopefully
when
not.
we advertise, I guess we don't even advertise our picks. When we do our picks, it's all coin flip bets. We're not doing anything crazy. Oh yeah, this is a minus 350. So you see all those guys on trying to sell picks, whatever. Again, we're never
Yeah,
gonna
like
sell picks, never gonna do anything like that.
like prime example Notre Dame. Oh, Notre Dame's minus 20.5. I'm just gonna take the Notre Dame money line because I don't want to lose it. Like
Yeah,
that's
like
like
that's and not we're not really doing stuff like that, but yeah, they are doing stuff like minus 400 and minus 500, and it's really
I'm not gonna be.
it's
We're not gonna be a
inflating it.
degenerate. Be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you a CJ Carr anytime touchdown like bet to do this week. Like that. Like, that
So
just
so for us to have true coin flip bets, minus 105 or plus 110, whatever
yeah,
it is, to be at 55%, I think that's very good.
yeah. So yeah, hopefully, well, for me at least, I hope I have a better 2026, 2027 campaign. For you, maybe you have another strong year like you did last season as well. All right, final thing we have, Johnson. I know it's been a long one, but let's round it off with our national championship winner. We picked our 12 teams. Who do you have out of those 12 coming out as the national champion?
Notre Dame.
Oh, I know what you're doing.
Notre Dame.
I know what you're doing. You
Kiss
know
of
what you're
death.
doing too.
Kiss of death.
Kiss of death. Oh God. Um. You know what? I'm picking the Texas Longhorns and doing it again.
Wow, you're really cursing Texas, man. All right.
Johnson, they have so much talent on that roster.
So does Notre Dame.
I know. Something's got to get. Listen, I had Clemson as my national champion last year. They didn't even make the playoff. I have to at least have someone make it. Now, if you're a Texas fan, is that concerning that my national champion pick last year didn't make it? Yeah, I would be concerned. I just think there's so much talent on that roster that it'd be stunning if they didn't make the college football playoff one. I just think it's gonna be tough for them not to make it. Again, like I said, there's a scenario where they could be one of the best teams in the country, or they might finish 8-4, 9-3 like they did last season and they miss it. I don't know, but I have them winning the national championship still. It was between them and Miami. I was literally gonna go all out on Miami this season, like I did it with Mensa earlier, but I'm not gonna do that. I have Texas beating. I have Texas being Oregon in the national championship. I'll just say it like that. Why not? I would like to see Arch Manning face Dante Moore in a championship game. That'd be a nice matchup. But I'll leave it at that. Other than that, Johnson, like I said, we're back into the good mood of things. What is this, year 4 or 5 now of covering
This is
the
year five, I think.
this is year 5, right?
Yeah, year five.
Oof.
Time
Covering
flies.
another season of college football, and not too far away, we have the NFL season coming around the corner too. I know, of course, we have a big time schedule coming up for us in the next couple of weeks. I know, obviously, you'll be taking a vacation in a couple of weeks, so you and I will have a 2 week mushing hour per se. I think for just the NFL, it might be college also. I'm not entirely
NFL
sure.
and college.
NFL college. So we'll have a lot of games uh, for those mushing hours the next couple of weeks, and then after that, we'll be right back into the mood of things. Every week we'll be previewing the week, recapping the previous week, and then going into the mushing hour for the upcoming weekend. So it should be another fun college football season. I am very much looking forward to it. We'll see who comes out on top as the national champion. Johnson, any final thoughts before we take this one home?
Just take us home, Nick.
All right, I will do that. That is going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. We are just under a week away from the kickoff of the college football season, and we'll see who goes to the college football playoff this season. How many of our teams will Johnson and I get correct? Hopefully, it's a good number compared to what we had last season. Only time will tell, but for week one, some decent games. We have UNC and TCU in Dublin, Boise State at number 2, Oregon, Clemson at number 11, LSU, Wisconsin at number 4, Notre Dame and Green Bay, number 19, SMU and Florida State, and number 24, Louisville, number 9, Ole Miss. Those games will be done after week one. We'll recap week one, and then we will preview not only week 2, but also week 3 of the college football season at a very high stacked mushing hour in our next show in just a few. I would say about a week time from this, from this recording here this week. From Nicholas Pavona and for Andrew Johnson, this has been the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.